Hello, welcome to News Round, a recap of our top stories for the week. Coming up, federal government to acquire land for ranches and livestock production as part of efforts to end farmer-head crisis in the country. And Group CEO of NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, debunks allegations of corruption in acquisition of OVH energy and relocation plans of NNPCL. Accounting icon Akintola Williams dies at 104. Plus, the United Nations World Meteorological Organization says most of the deaths from Libya floods could have been avoided. And President Tinubu says his administration will acquire land for ranches and livestock production in the country as part of efforts to end the protracted farmer-head crisis in the country. President Bola Tinubu stated this at the presidential villa in Abuja during a meeting with members of a national conference on livestock reforms as well as heads of security agencies in the country. During the meeting, the president also received the report of the National Conference on Livestock Reforms, which calls for the establishment of the Ministry of Livestock. Take a listen.
After a successful outing in India and the United Arab Emirates, President Bola Tinubu is back to face home-front matters. On his itinerary for the day is this meeting with heads of security agencies, members of the Committee on the National Conference on Livestock Reforms, Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MAGBAN, among other stakeholders. The president is concerned about the inefficiency in the livestock sector and the challenge posed by farmer-herder crisis in the country.
That should be the answer. We can create a huge economy out of the situation that we say problems. Instead of utilizing what we have for the benefit of mankind, the populace area, we let it loose on organized money. It is not the fault of Aviation or family. It's our fault in leadership. Not finding solution immediate, path to solve a problem. Leadership is about thinking and doing.
He is, however, quick to mention the solution his administration is bringing on board.
I will be talking to all the governors. The federal government is ready to acquire land for ranches and livestock development.
The report of the National Conference on Livestock, which was set up under former President Muhammadu Buhari, was presented during the meeting. The conference made 21 recommendations which provide a holistic approach to livestock production in the country. The national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Abdullahi Ganduje, who hosted the conference when he served as governor of Kano State, gives some details of the recommendations.
We recommended for the establishment of Ministry of Livestock and the subsequent agencies so that various aspects of the recommendations will have appropriate institutions for implementation.
As long as the triggers of the conflicts are not addressed, we are likely going to continue to have a recurring decimal. And what are the triggers? Primarily, the typical livestock herdsman is always in search of food and water for his animals.
The committee is optimistic that its recommendations will assist the government in tackling the issue of farmer-herder crisis once and for all. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, has denied claims of corrupt dealings in the acquisition of OVH energy by the NNPCL. He made this clarification when he appeared before an ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives investigating the allegation. He also denied plans to relocate NNPCL headquarters from Abuja to Lagos, as was being speculated.
The allegation of corrupt acquisition of OVH Energy by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, is being investigated by a House of Representatives ad hoc committee, as it meets with the chief executive of the NNPCL.
The former OVH Energy and its affiliates, Apapa SPM Limited, was reported to own the unlisted assets prior to its acquisition by NNPC PLC. 380 company-owned stations, a jetty ASPM with 240,000 metric tons, 8 LPG plants, 3 lubricants blending plants, 3 aviation and fuel depots, and 12 warehouses. Whereas upon acquisition, the record of assets credited to OVH Energy indicate only 72 company stations and other assets are said to be either on lease or owned by third parties. There are also other allegations including, but not limited to, vindictive placement of the initial staff of NNPC Retail.
The chief executive officer of the NNPCL responds to a petition alleging corrupt acquisition of OVH Energy.
We have taken this through all processes, and we will share this with you, the processes that we took up to the point of payment for these assets. So there is nothing hidden, Chairman. There is nothing, and it's very grievous and painful for some of us to say the least. I have seen this in the media, that it was a corrupt acquisition. And the realities are far from this. It's painful. 5 years backwards, the NNPC Retail Limited profits, the highest we did was in 2021, I think 2021, of 6.593 billion naira of profit. In 1 year, in 2021. But in first quarter of 2023, after the acquisition, this relationship made a profit of 18.4 billion naira. 18.4 billion naira profit in 1 quarter.
He also debunked speculations that the NNPCL plans to relocate its headquarters to Lagos.
We have no plan of moving the headquarters of the company. This is a private company. The registered head office of this company is in Abuja. So you cannot move it except you go to Corporate Affairs Commission for you to relocate your headquarters, because every company has a registered head office. But our operations, 70% of our operations are in Lagos. So if you keep everyone involved in the operation, if you move them from Lagos into Abuja, first it increases costs substantially, as a matter of fact, almost geometrically. And not only that, it takes you away from your operations.
Following allegations that the assets of OVH Energy were not properly listed by the NNPCL upon acquisition, the committee resolves to pay an oversight visit to the NNPCL in order to conclude its investigation. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Mr. Festus Keyamo, has unveiled plans to effect major changes in the nation's aviation industry. The minister listed maintenance, repair and overhaul of facilities and aircraft leasing as some of the priorities of the ministry. Mr. Keyamo reeled out his plans during the 7th edition of the Africa Aviation Summit in Abuja.
In order to attract foreign investors, the government is already looking at the following areas to improve aviation business in Nigeria: upgrading our infrastructure. For emphasis or elaboration, this includes upgrading the CAT-3 landing system at major airports, construction of the second runway in Abuja, which is about to commence right now, airport improvement programs through concession, and government willingness to partner with companies to turn major airports into aerotropolis. So we are looking at the aircraft leasing company. It's part of the roadmap. Government welcomes major players in aircraft leasing and head lessors to invest in Nigeria, airlines, to provide state-of-the-art aircraft. With the shortage of qualified engineers, the current administration is willing to provide all the necessary support for the establishment of world-class MROs and training organizations. We also look at the area of forex availability. The current administration is aware that one of the setbacks entrepreneurs have suffered in Nigeria in recent years is the fluctuation of foreign exchange and its availability. And then we do apologize, it has affected most of the airlines that we have bases with in Nigeria. It's one of the issues we actually went to sort out in the UAE. But this administration is committed to ensuring that forex is readily available to entrepreneurs, and I have directed, that's the president, I'm reading the president's speech, I've directed the Central Bank of Nigeria host quarterly reconciliatory meetings with a view to resolve this issue.
And to security matters now, Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State has again read the Riot Act to all UN agencies and humanitarian service providers in the state. He's asking them to either key into the state government's sustainable restoration drive or leave the state, as he is determined to end the IDP's dependence on handouts from the agencies. Professor Zulum made this declaration when he hosted the UN Assistant Secretary General on Solutions for Internal Displacement, Mr. Robert Piper, in Maiduguri, the state capital.
This is the second visit of the UN Assistant Secretary General on Solutions to Internal Displacement, Mr. Piper, to Maiduguri. And according to him, it is to learn the Borno state model of restoration after over a decade of insurgency.
We expect partners.
After listening to Mr. Robert Piper, Professor Zulum makes clear the terms of partnership between the state government and any humanitarian agency willing to operate in the state.
We do not want to perpetuate our people remaining in IDP camps beyond the period of necessity. We will not tolerate any attempt to allow our resettled communities and to continue to make them dependent while we are trying to support them to be on their feet again and rebuild their lives. We will not accept continuing to make them dependent instead of supporting them to become self-dependent. We are tired of partners taking out our professionals to Abuja and elsewhere, spending millions in the name of training our staff, particularly on our civil servants, teachers and healthcare providers, while in reality, what they end up doing is moving them from their primary assignments and depleting our already poor staff numbers in this area. We therefore expect all partners to work with us in the design and delivery of services in the state. Any partner that is not willing to work with us to ensure that our people do not only survive, but live with dignity and ready to support with what it takes to give them hope, that they and their children can achieve their highest potential, can lead the state.
The UN delegation then heads to the Northeast Development Commission headquarters to further discussions on the new approach to partnership with the state of the Northeast.
We came to Borno to see, firstly, how we can learn from what has been done so far, and secondly, how we can support the state government in their very strong commitment. And we had very good discussions today together also with the Managing Director, with His Excellency the Governor, who seems very committed to finding pathways for these people to be settled, to go home, to be integrated into their communities, to be resettled somewhere else. So we're here to learn and we're here to support.
The governor acknowledges the contributions of the United Nations and its agencies during the insurgency, but insists that funds must be channeled towards rebuilding communities and villages destroyed by Boko Haram.
And when News Round returns, global health partners commit $2 billion to Nigeria's healthcare sector. Stay with us. Welcome back to News Round. Well, a total of $2 billion to be deployed into Nigeria's healthcare sector to help in the fight against HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria in the next 3 years. The fund is coming from the United States President's Malaria Initiative and the Global Fund and the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. This came to the fore during a meeting between Vice President Kashim Shettima and delegations from the three organizations at the Presidential Villa in Abuja.
Scaling up healthcare delivery to Nigerians is the crux of this meeting between Vice President Kashim Shettima and the global health partners at the Presidential Villa. The delegation is made up of representatives from the U.S. President's Malaria Initiative, the Global Fund, and the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR. The coordinating Minister of Health is also attending the meeting, which holds behind closed doors. In a statement issued by the Director of Information in the Office of the Vice President, Senator Shettima is quoted to have said, improved health outcomes for all Nigerians, increased domestic financing for health, and promoting health industrialization. These are three major commitments I am making on behalf of my boss, and be rest assured that our word is our bond. End of quote.
I'm his SSA on the strategic communications and advocacy. So,
outside the hall, the visitors tell State House correspondents about their readiness to commit funds to support Nigeria's efforts to combat HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria.
Over the last close to 20 years, we've invested about $7.8 billion in supporting your fight against HIV/AIDS. We want to assure the government of Nigeria that we will continue to work with them under their leadership as they chart a new direction for the health outcomes in the country. And we are committing another $400 million this year, and subsequent year another $400 million, making a total of about $800 million over the next 2 years in supporting the HIV fight in Nigeria.
We are investing heavily in the key components of the health system, whether it's community health workers, disease surveillance systems, laboratories, or the provision of medical oxygen.
Added to the grants, the global partners will also provide training to Nigerian health workers across 36 states of the Federation and the FCT.
The two visitors, three of them, have now committed almost $2 billion in grant financing for health of Nigerians over the next 3 years. We're developing a program with them to retrain 120,000 frontline health workers in Nigeria, in all the states, over the next 12 to 18 months.
The Nigerian government considers this collaboration with the global partners as an expression of confidence in the administration of President Bola Tinubu. It is expecting that this partnership would go a long way in addressing many of the challenges in the health sector. From the presidential villa, Empress Simon, Channels Television News.
And the doyen of accounting profession in Nigeria, Akintola Williams, has died at the age of 104 in his Lagos home. The graduate of accounting from the University of London founded the first indigenous chartered accounting firm in Africa. This next report looks at the life and times of Pa Akintola Williams.
On Wednesday, August the 9th, 2023, the home of foremost accounting genius and doyen became a mecca of some sort, with dignitaries turning up to celebrate him. It was his 104th birthday celebration. A day before, members of the Metropolitan Club gathered to celebrate the man they described as a legend, a leader, and a pathfinder.
Mr. Akintola Williams is unusual, unique, okay? It seemed as a young man to have found his purpose early in life and focused on accounting, all right? And anybody that had anything to do with business, accounting, business, economics, law, banking, you had to know Mr. Williams.
Pa Akintola Williams, who insisted on being called a Mr. rather than any other title, was a founding member of the Institute of the Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, where he served as its very first president. The accounting icon was a man of many firsts, including being Africa's first chartered accountant, first African partner with an international accounting firm, KPMG. Mr. Williams established Nigeria's first indigenous accounting firm. But beyond all of these and many firsts and other accomplishments, some people see him as being personally connected with them.
Writing from school, we all know about him. We dream to even know him, to even have the privilege of even having maybe one-on-one with him or to need to speak with him or something like that. So, but our relationship blossomed, let me put it like that. When I was in the Senate, that was about, I think, 2003.
He's described as one man with deep love for God, family, and country.
For me, he was a natural leader, a natural-born leader, but a soft leader. And really shouted, really raised his voice. And I think the perfect example of soft power, just looking at him and following his lead. And he's a wonderful person to follow.
His body may have fallen, but his legacy lives on in the Mission Center, which he joined to birth. It lives in ICANN, in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, in the accounting profession across the African continent, and in every life that he touched while he was here. To the Crown at Deribebe, Channels Television News.
And we end news round in Libya, where the head of the World Meteorological Organization, Terry Tallis, is lamenting the casualties that could have been avoided in the major floods in the country. According to him, if the politically divided country had a functional meteorological service, it would have been able to issue early disaster warnings.
It seems differences in opinion can cost lives, as rescue operations are complicated by political fractures in the country of 7 million people that has been at war, on and off, with no strong central government since the NATO-backed uprising that toppled Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. This is the opinion of the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, who says lives were lost to lack of planning.
Met service is practically not functioning because they are not able to operate, and their observing network has been very much destroyed. The IT systems have been destroyed, and although Libya used to be a wealthy country with fairly modern services in the past, but due to this inaction of the meteorological service, the flooding event just came there, and there was no evacuation taking place because there was not the proper early warning services in place.
An internationally recognized government of national unity, GNU, is based in Tripoli in the west, while a parallel administration operates in the east, including Derna. Talas says WMO had previously been in touch with Libyan authorities to assist them in reforming the country's meteorological system, but the efforts were hampered by a dire security situation. With thousands dead or missing and tens of thousands displaced in the aftermath of floods in Libya brought on by Storm Daniel, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, is soliciting international aid.
I'm profoundly distressed that thousands of lives have been so brutally swept away in eastern Libya. And so many more people have lost their loved ones, their homes, their communities, and their access to basic needs. Storm Daniel is yet another lethal reminder of the catastrophic impact that the changing climate can have on our world. I call on all Libyan political actors to overcome deadlocks and divisions and to act collectively in ensuring access to relief. This is a time for unity of purpose. All those affected must receive support, without regard for any affiliations. It is important that particular care is taken to ensure protection of groups in vulnerable situations who are rendered even more at risk in the aftermath of such a disaster. Human rights need to be at the center of the response to this heartbreaking situation. We need to invest in prevention and resilience. I stand in solidarity with the people of Libya, with my deepest heartfelt condolences to those who are mourning irreplaceable losses.
Storm Daniel, which wrought devastation across the Mediterranean in the past week, killed 15 people in central Greece, where it dumped more rain than previously recorded before sweeping across to Libya. Global warming means the region may have to brace up in the future for increasingly powerful storms of this kind, the Mediterranean's equivalent of a hurricane, known as a medicane. Meanwhile, Aid donated from several parts of Libya is slowly trickling into the devastated city of Derna, days after the storm. A torrent unleashed by a powerful storm burst dams on Sunday night and cascaded down a seasonal riverbed that bisects the city, washing multi-story buildings into the sea with sleeping families inside. Confirmed death tolls given by officials so far have varied, but all are in the thousands, with thousands more on lists of the missing. Derna Mayor Abdul Menam Al-Gethi says deaths in the city could get to 20,000 based on the extent of the damage.
And that's News Round for the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.